You know, we were created in God's image. What I'm saying by that is, look, people try to come in the program, they see God or higher power. We were made, look at our bodies, a perfection. The universe goes around, it's all perfection. It's only when we get, that's what the defects of character in step 4 say. Remorse, shame, guilt. These are all when we get in the way. When we get in the way, if you want the higher power, the consciousness comes in when we have that revelation, a spiritual revelation of what this whole thing is, that we weren't meant here. Yeah, okay, again, be fearful if somebody has a gun to your head. But we misuse it for everything in our lives. The ego, you listen to the ego, it's going to get you upset and depressed every time. It's going to send you down the path of resentment, anger, fear, frustration. It's all perception. All of this is perception in the brain, you know? And it was the way I reacted to what happened to me as a child. Is that the spiritual awakening there? That when we understand the way we react, and that's what Bill had said on page 15, he said it was a perception change. And it goes on to say, I love this where it says here, AA has taught me through a simple program. You see that next line on page 544 in Freedom from Bondage near the bottom of the page? A simple program. What are we talking about here? No, we have a book here with 600 pages. I have self-help books like you wouldn't believe. I went to millions of lectures, but it's saying a simple program. What is that simple program? Let go. Let go of all of this nonsense. Knowing the truth from the false will set you free. It's simple, 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 simple program, but we want to complicate it. No, it can't be that simple. Again, look at the puppy dog. He's got the answer. Look at the little child. But we take it. God gave us this intellect to use for life, you know, to figure things out, to figure out how to come on the Zoom meeting, right? But no, again, we misuse it. Self-will run riot. Every time I take my self-will back, you know, just letting go, and you know, maybe we'll read the step 3 prayer, and you know, Dr. Bob would have people go do that prayer, and it was all about, you know, subliming the self, you know, just getting yourself humility. Humility. I don't need more self-esteem. I don't need more people to like me. I need humility, which means what happens, the whole world opens up then. When I surrender, the whole world surrenders, right? And again, I always use this phrase too. There's nothing that anybody can teach you that you don't already know. All that is inside you, all the joy. But we miss, you know, we didn't have the instruction booklet. We have it here now. We can just these first part of this big book and going through these steps of transformation with our addictions, and you know, why worry about it? You know, most of the problem is when people have an addiction or a problem in their life, they worry, they're fearing the fear. False evidence appearing real, but it's always, oh, what's going to happen to me? I'm going to go crazy. I'm going to get upset. Let go already. You know, even look, people don't want to hear this, but you know, when you're out of self, you can accept your own death. You can accept your own death. The people around you too, because when it's always about us. What's going to happen to me? What, you know, if somebody happens to somebody close to me, or if something happens to me, right? When we're out of self, when we have this different consciousness, spirituality, we don't have to relate. We're on a different plane. It's called the 4th dimension. You've heard of that, right? The 6th sense, getting out of these 5 senses. You know, they're pleasurable, but we need spiritual bread from God or higher consciousness. So anyway, it goes on to say, I may experience a change in this reaction pattern and will indeed allow me to match calamity with serenity. How joyous is that, the perception change? The more people try to push my buttons, the more, you know, I go to work or something, the boss is jumping up and down, or people there, it says in our book, we can only sit there and smile. When we have that understanding that it's falseness, it's the ego. We don't have to react anymore. But the great thing is with all of this is that when we change, the world around us changes. And look, if you want to get even with somebody, just love them, okay? You know, we go around trying to control people, you know, and in a moment, you know, we have where we make them, you know, I was talking to somebody about, again, the other day I was on a meeting with a few people on Zoom, and we're talking about making amends, right? And you know, all I know is that you can go out and make amends to people. Somebody will say, did you make amends? I made amends to like 10 people. But the next day they're back to the old patterns. But you know, when we have that perception change, you know, and it talks about here when Ebby came into the room and in his eyes, and it was a change in character and change in thinking. The body language. When people close to us that love us, we could have resentment with them and upset with them for years. But when we have that change and the perception, and we see them and have the love and tolerance, in a moment, they pick that up and they can see. And they'll try their old ways and you'll just love them to death, right? You want to get even with somebody, the best way is to love them. Because what happened is that spiritual transformation or change, and it talks about here in, if you go to page, well, right before this, we were talking about on page 15, but on page, on page 9, go to Bill's story, page 9. This is spiritual transformation here in the first paragraph. It's a small paragraph. It says, the door opened and he stood there, fresh-skinned and glowing. There was something about his eyes. He was inexplicably different. What had happened? He didn't even recognize the guy. So if there's somebody you're having a problem with in your life and you have this shift in thinking out of the self and have the God esteem, love, tolerance, patience, that is our code. It says it here throughout the book. I don't have to try to be a likable person. It just happens. I don't have to try to get somebody to like me. It just happens. And if they don't, this is the beauty of the program. If they don't accept me, that's fine too. I can only sit there and smile. But you want to know something? If you just sit there and smile and are joyful and have love for somebody, there's no resistance there. What are they going to do? What are they going to do? They're going to jump up and down and try to act their old way. But there's a transformation, and they believe me, they pick that up, and it's pretty amazing. Let me just go to Doctor's Opinion. This whole program about spirituality and what we're talking about here, on page XXV11, at 17 Roman numeral, it says, in the middle of the page, with our ultra-modern standards, our scientific approach to everything, we are perhaps not well equipped to apply the factors of good that lie outside our synthetic knowledge. So that's what the guy spoke about there when he said it was his attitude and people told him it's things that happened in his childhood. Bill says on page 13 too, and this is the whole crux of the thing, he says, common sense will become uncommon sense. Did you ever have that experience where, whether it could be in a sport or something you did in life and you always were trying to do it one way, and then it just seemed the way that was counterintuitive was the way to do it? Our life tells us, our ego says we got to control things. This is the way we do things, But just like, and I use the analogy of sport, try to hit a baseball or catch a baseball and think of every little action or whatever it is, or hit a golf ball. No, it's called getting in the zone, having that zone, that God consciousness, and then it reveals, It's all revealed to us because the answers are here. No, we got to go. This is, we got to go ask 10 people what to do. We got to go to our sponsor. When somebody comes to me and says, what do I do about a problem? I had a nun in a meeting. She always used to say, everybody, they go around the room, they're talking about their problems. She would say, just sit. Just sit. You sit and get centered. Some people are afraid to go out and get a job, whatever it is. When we get centered and we have that consciousness, a change in thinking, the perception change, then we'll go out, we'll take on the world, we'll take any job, because it's only that self-centered fear. Hey, when you're out of the self, there's nothing to fear anymore. The whole world, the concept changes, our whole thinking. So, but then it goes on to say on the next page, unless this person has a psychic change, a change in thinking, perception. What is that change in thinking? It's picking up, it says, this simple spiritual toolkit laid at our feet, which are the steps, which is the beginning part of this big book. Because on page 25, again, we right now let go of it all. Just forget about it. Whatever you're thinking about, think about it, but no, it's not true. It's not true to be fearful, again, of our own, these little plans and designs we have. It has to do, look, 90% of it has to do with other people in our lives, our problems, right? It all has to do with that resentment, anger. Resentment is the number one problem it talks about here before the fourth step. So when we have this God consciousness, we have, look, the sick man prayer talks about when a person's in the hospital sick with a broken leg, do you go in there, do you get mad at them? They're sick. Same with people spiritually sick or bankrupt when we come in here. We were the same way. We can only smile, so we look at them and we understand, they say hurt people hurt people. The more a person's trying to get you upset, the more they're hurting. If they felt good about themselves, they'd come up and give you a hug, right? So the comprehension, the perception change in life, AA, attitude adjustment, the spiritual awakening towards our problems. You're worried about, what are you worried about, right? Somebody at work, somebody's going to say something to you. It's the ego. The ego doesn't want to die. We're sitting there in fear. They say here in page 68, people say spirituality is a way of weakness, No, it's a way of strength. When we're in the self, we're very weak. We're fearful. The self doesn't want to die. The self wants to protect itself. The ego. That's ego easing God out. So here, and it talks about on page 25 on the second paragraph. The great fact is just this, that we had nothing, that we had deep and effective spiritual experiences which have revolutionized our whole attitude. So when we realized step 2 said we were insane, that we needed that attitude adjustment, it's very simple, the program. Just getting out of yourself. Be like somebody sitting in a limousine, the limousine's driving down the street. You could just sit back there and relax. No, but the way we drive in a limousine or in the back seat, we're trying to steer the car. We're putting our foot on the brake, right? For what? What reason? Look, so that's the way we run our lives. We could just be happy, joyous. And people say, hey, Bob, if I just sit and relax, this is what I always get. I told that story once in a meeting, and somebody says, look, if I just sit back and relax in life, we got to do stuff. We got to have that, willingness. We got to have that initiative, incentive to go out and do things. I'm telling you right now, sit back, relax, like you're in a limousine in a car. The next thing you'll find yourself doing is getting up, getting dressed, and going out the door, want to enjoy the day. We'll know what to do. God will intuitively, that's one of the 9-step promises. It says we'll intuitively know what to do. When we get centered, we'll know how to, hey, I don't have to go tell people, offer, for a meeting at work or something, come up with a quick answer for something. I can only sit there and relax when I'm centered. I'll know what to say, right? We know what to say. And if we don't say anything, it doesn't matter either. I mean, the whole thing is that when we're out of the self, when we're just, it's just so amazing. The whole world opens up, but with our addiction, say to food, a lot of times I go back to the food. I didn't talk about it much today, but and you're in a car, that's the ego wanting food. We isolate, we come home, we shut the shades. Again, we're in the car eating, and we're not even thinking about the beautiful nature and God's beautiful world out there and the beautiful people and everything in life. Yeah, no, we're in the self. We go out, we're depressed and anxious about the past and the future. That's crazy. It said the mental twist here. So long as we understand the craziness that if you're worried about something right now, say you're worried about some finance or somebody in your life or, a long loss of love, whatever it is, it's not true. That's not where the answer is going to be, because you know what's going to happen? You'll find that great job. You win the lottery. You'll have that person like you, want to love you, who you thought, would be all joy and happiness. And a few minutes later, it's a moment like the man who climbed Mount Everest. That's not going to... Always on the other side of pleasure is devastation.